the offense was supposed to have these two new uber athletes. Devontae Parker, big guy, can run fast. Tyquan Thornton, quickest guy in the NFL, right? That was the plan. Push back the coverage, roast man coverage. That was the plan. They don't look as athletic as I think they should do on the field. If you're going to run to a move offense, it's all crosses, it's all catch and go on the move, it's moving the pocket, it's a slash and kick run game. You've got to look like great athletes. You put the 49ers on, they look more athletic than everyone else, even when they're losing games. The Rams, they look more athletic than everyone else. I watched this Pats team, and I love some of the pieces. I think it's interesting to have Kendrick Bourne and Devontae Parker. I think Ty Montgomery, the reload motion stuff with him, maybe a few years too late, but it's at least interesting. Thornton, really interesting, now he's injured. I don't see the athleticism, which was the giant issue last year, and they moved to an offense that requires them to be more athletic.
Yeah. And you look at some of these plays from the Carolina game. It's like, the 3rd and 7, the check down to Stevenson that falls incomplete because he kind of misses it. There's nobody open. Like, it's kind of a levels with crossers. You expect those athletes to take over. Nobody's open. Like that first sack on the 3rd and 4 and the first drive where you've got stick front side, you've got a backside Y ISO go route. It's too high. The backside go route's open to the tight end. He doesn't have time, because he's got, the center, it's a rain mug look, right? And you've written a lot about this. The center, he opens to his left, that guy pops, the guy on the right comes and just buries the right guard, and he's in Jones's lap. Like he doesn't have the time to do it. So you've got guys that can't separate. You've got no time to make these throws. And I've talked a lot about how, as a quarterback, when you start taking hits, you speed things up. Placement struggles. Like you're going to miss throws when you're speeding things up and when you're under pressure. And that's what you're sort of seeing. The offense finally looked good, midway through the second when Hoyer was in there and they're playing against the 2s and the 3s. Like you saw a dagger, you saw some hot stuff, you saw some stuff that actually worked. That's against guys that you're not going to be playing against on Sundays. So, I mean, the issues that we've talked about, you can see them on film Friday night where they couldn't get protection, they couldn't get separation, and Jones really sort of struggled when he didn't have time.
And it's another one that returns to trying to do too much at once. Back to the Skarnecki point you were making of, if they were only doing one of these changes, you can ditch something. If you change the holistic model of how you've done all of training camp and then tried to revert back to what you did before, a lot of these guys haven't been in the building either, by the way. Yeah. So they've just learned this. It's not like you can just tell them, let's get last year's playbook and let's go back to that. A lot of these guys weren't doing that either. So right. The offense they've learned in New England, right? Now there's a crossover across the entire league. If they've played elsewhere, they can pick stuff up pretty quickly, but it's just going to be different. Joe Burrow, when he came to the league, they wanted to run this style of system, and his offensive line was so bad. He said, fuck that. I'm never turning my back to a defense in the NFL. I'll get killed. Yeah. Given how bad that offensive line has been, there is just no way you can run it on week 1 and say, hey, Mac, how about you turn your back to the defense 12 times? That would just make no sense.
Yeah, it does. And you saw what, the Bengals and Taylor did in response. They went empty. They went 5 wide. They said, look, you're going to have to fix this on your own, Burrow. We don't have the time to protect you. I'm curious to see, when Burrow's back, what that offense looks like this year with some of the improvements they made on the offensive line. Maybe we see less of that and more of what they want it to be. But I think right now in New England, when you have these protection problems, when you have these issues, when you have some inconsistency in picking up blitzes and things like that, why you're going to condense things and turn your back to the defense to have your quarterback do that is beyond me.
And the thing with Burrow is they ripped all that stuff out and the offense was gross.
Yeah.
Right? They telegraphed their entire playbook, essentially, except for the empty stuff. And there's only so much you can run from empty. Everyone loves empty. There's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
That's the only thing they didn't telegraph, is the one that's probably the easiest to pick up, right? And he had Jamar Chase. It's like you just cannot overlook the fact that so much of that offense, that was not an efficient offense in any way. It was often bad, right? Particularly by design. So is their game plan to the Skarnecki route to say, either we run this offense that's pretty and built well, but if we can't run it, we'll ditch it, and we're going to have to run an offense that is broken by design. Why would you choose either of those two worlds?
$1 million question there. I mean, it's just one that I wish I could answer, but it's a whole world of bad right now.
Okay, let's wrap up with just some quick talk on the second-year guys in general. I saw a thing you did recently talking about Jones, where I think you said that he was upper tier 3 in your mind, and this season was about whether he could get to the lower rung of tier 2, which would be like the natural progression of a second-year quarterback, unless your name is Joe Burrow and you vault right to the top.
Right.
Tier 1, a freakish rise. Where does that put him that upper tier 3 situation, if that's still how you feel, compared to Fields, Lawrence, Lance, Wilson?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, like when you look at these second-year quarterbacks last year, Jones was, a couple of weeks where Mills played well. Jones was the best of the bunch because he was in the best environment. I mean, Wilson, they couldn't protect him. He was struggling. He was speeding things up. He was cut and drop short. He was madly inconsistent. After he came back from the injury, I thought he was a little bit better. He was calmer in the pocket, but there was some inconsistency there. Lawrence was in an absolute nightmare of a scenario, right? It feels the situation wasn't that much better. And Lance played in limited action. I mean, it was almost kind of like by default where, like, yeah, Jones made the playoffs, was in a good environment, had a great defense, was a solid run game, and played well. This was the argument for Jones when you decided to draft him, right? He was going to be the guy early. But as so many people in the league have told me, and we've talked about this, they're all like, yeah, talk to me in year 3, right? Talk to me in year 5 of Mac Jones. Matt Lombardo, who, writes for Heavy.com, had a great piece where he talked to Jordan Palmer. It came out today as we're recording this about these year 2 quarterbacks. And he talked to sort of an unnamed executive, the old, anonymous source. And, the quote on Mac Jones is, he's the same guy he was last year. He'll be the same guy 10 years from now. The only reason he was a Pro Bowl type quarterback is because he has a hell of a running game, a hell of a defense, a hell of a team around him, and the greatest coach ever to do that. That's an unnamed NFC executive, but there's some truth to that. Like the idea of what Jones's ceiling looks like, and I think his ceiling is a little bit better than certainly this guy says it, a little bit better than we thought it was going to be. But is his ceiling, say, bottom of tier 2? Maybe. I think for a guy like Lawrence, for a guy like Lance, maybe even Fields and Wilson, their ceiling might still be a little bit higher than that.
I agree with that. I think you cap out at Kirk Cousins, who can throw
Right.
against blitz, which is a really good player. I would like to have that player. Kirk Cousins is a good player. That's maybe gets you to the top 8, and you can win Super Bowls with the top 8.
Yeah.
I really do enjoy the anonymous quotes for several reasons. When an executive talks about the team building aspect, I would like the follow up of, well, is the point to build a bad team and have Josh Allen bail you out? That is a great team. Or, Justin Herbert in year 1 of Justin Herbert, or is it to build a good team to make it easy for the quarterback? I don't understand that. The other scenarios and other situations, then. So what we're really saying is Mac Jones was the best last year. The numbers suggest 12th in the league, right around there. Your tiers, similar type thing. The other guys were all in pretty dreadful situations. Fields' situation to me got significantly worse somehow because what is around him is just embarrassing. It's almost like they're hanging him out to dry so the new brain trust can move on from him. Lawrence, clearly a better situation, though he's had his struggles. Wilson, a massively improved situation, but we just do not know on the player. Lance, the dream scenario, right? The entire league has shifted to a point where, hey man, it's your time. If you had come into the league 3 years ago, might have been in trouble. Right now, you are built for this thing. Let's go get it, right? That's where the league's at. So where are you kind of thinking about these guys? Even forget the rankings from like a, hot take point of view, just in terms of your fun and enjoyment and what you're looking forward to studying with these guys this year. How are you kind of divvying them up?
I mean, the first 2 guys that I'll watch are going to be Lance and Lawrence each week. But, when I come downstairs Monday morning and turn on the All-22, like those are the guys that I'm going to watch first because I think Lawrence is in such a great environment because he's under a guy that has an actual proven track record of quarterback development. Like, say whatever you want about Carson Wentz. 2017 Carson Wentz was playing at an MVP level before he got hurt, and it was under Doug Peterson. And when you look at what Peterson does conceptually, so quarterback friendly. Like one of the better throws that Lawrence had against the Steelers was a mesh coupled with a sail. So basically you've got the initial mesh and that crosser becomes the shallow on the sail. Like it's like 2 half-field concepts that blend together into one if he doesn't like that initial read. It's very quarterback friendly. And this is some of the vanilla stuff that they're showing right now. And so I think when we start seeing what that offense really looks like, it's going to be great. And with Lance, it's the combination of, it's really the sort of macro question of what could this outside zone, boot action, Kyle Shanahan kind of offense look like when it's not a Cousins, a Garoppolo, or a Matt Ryan running it, when it's a guy like Trey Lance with the athleticism that he has. Like, I think that's something that, an underpinning of this entire discussion is we've seen what these offenses can and can't do. We've seen these kinds of systems sort of plateau. Yes, the Rams just won a Super Bowl, but they had the ability last year when they wanted to just say, forget it, we'll go 5 wide, we'll go empty. Matthew Stafford will, and McVay said when he traded for him, he could fix things post snap. Like, that's why we went and got this guy. Nice little slap in the face to Jared Goff. But it's true. Like, they didn't have to rely on that system. We've seen this offensive system sometimes plateau in the hands of some quarterbacks that don't have an extra sort of elite trait to hang their hat on with Stafford. It's his arm and his aggression and his ability to break things down with his mind. With Lance, it might be his arm plus his athleticism. What does his offense look like in his hands? Like, so yeah, those are the two guys that when it's Monday morning, when it's, the middle of October, when it's still dark out and you're coming downstairs to start working for the day, those are the guys I'm turning on first.
With Lawrence, how much do you want to see it being quick game with the flash fake, either RPOs or play action? And how much do you want the deep drop, Bruce Arians, let's drive the ball down the field? Because his archetype is that latter one, right? You think of the look style of offensive, and that's where he's at his best, getting aggressive down the field. You kind of combine that with what Peterson did at the end of the run in Philadelphia, which was mostly by necessity rather than what he'd really done before and did brilliantly. And probably, we're talking about catching on the right time of the evolutionary cycle, right? He got another time where NFL defenses didn't know what an RPO was somehow, and now they all crush that stuff, right?